everyone, welcome to day 3 of Bookmas. So today I'm going to talk about 3 of my favourite readathons that I took part in this year. And while I'm doing that, I want to share with you the books that I ended up reading for that. I'm not going to talk too long about each book. I'm kind of going to challenge myself to very briefly tell you my thoughts on what I remember from reading that book. And then if you wanted to check out any of my reviews, I'll link them down below so you can do that. But yeah, so let's get on with it. The first readathon I want to talk about took place in the month of September. It was a month-long readathon, and it is Beccas Becoli. So this is my little Becoli board that I used, that Becca from Becca and the Books created based on her Becoli game that she plays. It's her TBR game that she plays every month. And she made like a special mini board, especially for her readathon, where the spaces were, rather than genres, they were like prompts. And then everybody did their own roles for the month. This is just such a cool concept. I really like it. And there was also chance cards as well, where you had to write like equal numbers of books you really wanted to read and then books you really didn't want to read. And then community chest was prompts as well, I think. Yeah, I think it was prompts as well. Anyway, down in the comments I'm going to link Becca's video announcing this past year's one, because no doubt I feel like she would do it again, hopefully next year, with her own Becoli that she plays. She changes the board that she uses and the genres on the board every year. She at least switches up the board every year, so it's not the same. So yeah, I highly recommend you going to check that out if you really like TBR games, because it's really fun. And if you really like TBR games, then you probably already know it, so what am I even talking about? If you don't like TBR games and you're like, what is the fuss about? And you haven't seen Becca's videos, I would recommend it because it's really fun. So when I played this game, I only rolled 4 times, which was kind of sad, and I might incorporate this again sometime this year because there's so many prompts on here that I didn't get to, obviously, and the cards as well, so I feel like I've missed out on a lot. But the first square that I landed on was read a book with a light cover, and so for that I ended up picking Calm by Fearne Cotton, and I gave this 3 stars in the end. I think it was kind of like a nice little book where she talks about life and being calm. So Fearne Cotton is like a, well, she's an author obviously, but she was a radio DJ and then she's a presenter, and she talks about her life and being a mother and kind of the crazy world and staying calm within the world. And I did like reading it, but I wasn't completely blown away by it, but there were some nice aspects about it, and I think I gave it 3 stars in the end. So yeah, that's Calm by Fearne Cotton. Ooh, this is kind of weird doing quick fire like reviews because I feel like I'm not saying anything accurate. Like I said, I'll put my real reviews down in the comments. So then the next square I landed on was POC Rep, and for that I ended up reading To Sir with Love by E.R. Braithwaite, and this is like based on his real life, but he's written it in novel form. At the beginning of the book, it's just at the end of the war, and he's looking for a job after his kind of stint in the RAF fighting for Britain. So Rick is from British Guiana, and he's basically decided to stay in Britain and live. And he really wants a job as an engineer. And despite his optimism at the very beginning, the way that people treat him as a black man in the UK is terrible, and he doesn't manage to get a job in engineering, which is what he really wants to do. So he ends up being sent to work in a school in East London, and it's about kind of how people treat him as a black man working in a school in East London, and also about his relationship with the children. And yeah, it made me feel sad for him and the way people reacted to him, but it was also lovely to see the way his relationships developed during the course of the book with teachers and students. So then I landed on the square Young Adult, and for that I picked up Heart So Fierce and Broken by Brigid Kemmerer. This is a sequel to Heart So Fierce and Broken, which is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. This is YA fantasy. I really liked it. The series can be a bit cheesy at times, but it sucks you in, drags you away, and it's just really fun. You're kind of following a character who's based in the real world who has been sucked into a fantasy world, and I love that kind of like theme. So yeah, really enjoyed this. Completely sucked me in, and I read it so quickly. Okay, and finally I landed on Nature on the cover, and for that I ended up picking The Offin by Benjamin Myers, and this was such a calming book to read. It follows a boy just after World War II in northern England, and he goes on his travelling. He wants to go travelling and look at nature, and there's many descriptions about nature, and he ends up going to the seaside, and he comes across this cottage where this eccentric older lady lives, and it's about their friendship. And yeah, it was a really nice calming book to read. Okay, so my second readathon I want to talk to you about is the 1,000 Doors readathon, and I haven't actually wrapped this up yet. So this readathon was organised by Emma from Drinking by My Shelf, Tamsin from, let me just check the name of her channel, Tea Books in Tamsin, and also Meg from Meg with Books, and it took place in like the whole of November, and I haven't actually talked about what I ended up reading for that. So I'm going to talk about it now. This was just such a creative idea that they came up with. The three girls put up their 3 prompts initially, and then depending on questions you answered at the end of that video, took you to another video, and then there was a different question asked which took you to another video, and a different question asked which took you to another video. So it was just so creative, and it was such a fun idea, and I think they're going to leave it up. So I think you can just do it whenever, and it also means if you want to play again, then you might end up down different paths and stuff like that. So yeah, it was a really, really cool idea. And I haven't actually spoken about what I ended up reading for this, or the prompts that I got, so I'm going to do that now. If you don't want any spoilers for it, then just skip straight past this section if you wanted to go and check it out yourself. Okay, so the first prompt that I went with, I chose Meg's video, and for Meg's prompt she ended up choosing memes for her ones, which was a really fun idea. And the first meme was "That's history." That could be anything. Like the kind of whole idea of this readathon was that you could just twist the prompts to basically fit any book that you wanted, which was really handy. So for "That's history" I ended up reading Frankenstein, because it is like a historical book, a classic of the ages. And Frankenstein obviously follows Frankenstein, who builds his monster, and you just basically follow Frankenstein as he rues the day he ever built this monster. And it's the most depressing book I've ever read, but actually I really enjoyed it. And then the question that they asked you at the end was your star rating, and I ended up giving Frankenstein 4 stars. So then that led me on to another of Meg's videos. And so the next prompt was "I'm back." And so for that I ended up choosing The Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb, because I put this down in November. So I used "I'm back" to be like, oh, I'm picking this book back up so I can carry on reading it, which was something that Meg suggested herself, from what I can remember. I've spoken about this book loads, I don't need to go on about it, but this is like multi-spective fantasy, family drama all over the place, ships that come to life, serpents that eat people, and I really, really like it. And so when I went back to the video, the question that was asked at the end of that video was, did you guess the ending? And actually, I'm going to get the book back, but actually The Ship of Magic, there was some aspects of it that I could guess, but then there was a lot that I found surprising. So it wasn't necessarily the ending, because this is like a set-up book, but it was like something happened and I was shocked. And then I had other ideas which came true, but then something else happened that I was like, oh, I didn't consider this, and then they would come true, and then things I thought from finding that bit out then would come true. So I kind of guessed as I went along, so I didn't think that that really counted, because there was so much that I learnt in the end of this book. So I ended up choosing no, I didn't guess what was going on, because I felt like I learned so much, and there were so many surprising things. And that led me to Tamsin's video. And so the third prompt was Marvel. So when it comes to Marvel, I literally don't know anything. So I was really struggling, and I was thinking, what on earth do I pick up? So I was researching like books based on like Marvel characters, Marvel films, but Tamsin said you could also do comics. But there was a few books I really wanted to read, so I really tried to find connections there somewhere. One of the books I really wanted to read was Sense and Sensibility, because that was on my TBR trail game for the month of November. And so out of like frustration, I just typed in Marvel and Jane Austen, which I thought nothing was going to come up, but I just thought, come on, there must be a link somewhere. Anyway, I typed it in, and it turns out that Marvel have made a comic of Sense and Sensibility. So there was my link, and there I could read Sense and Sensibility. So I was so pleased with myself, as you can imagine. Anyway, I ended up not liking Sense and Sensibility, so that's super sad. I didn't not like Sense and Sensibility, but I was disappointed with it. So I think I gave it 3 stars in the end. But it basically follows a couple of sisters. So one is very proper and to the rules of the day, doesn't like to express her feelings all too much. And the other sister is heart on her sleeve, very emotional, very OTT about stuff. Kind of like how we all felt when we were teenagers, but she expresses it so openly. And it's about them and them falling in love with men in their village and town and going to London and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, I've really loved Jane Austen in the past, so I was kind of really disappointed. Plus I'd seen the film and I had really enjoyed the film. So I think it turns out that the reason I didn't like it so much was because I didn't really get on with Eleanor, who is the main character in the book. She was kind of really frustrating to me, and it was kind of because of her that I didn't enjoy the book, because I did love a lot of the other characters, but the way that she viewed the world was really irritating to me. So when I went back and I looked at Tamsin's video, the question at the end was, did you like the character of the novel? And I had to say no. Like, I didn't really dislike her, but at the time I was still annoyed about it, so I was like, no, I don't like her, and I clicked on that path down to the next prompt. So it may have been a bit unfair, but that's what I did. And that took me to Emma's video, and Emma's prompt was yellow. I went with yellow on the cover, and I ended up reading The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, which, again, I didn't like. So I had some disappointing reads actually for this readathon. I ended up giving The Midnight Library 2 stars. I was really loved the concept. I didn't like the way it was executed. Just my personal preference. I can totally see why people would love it and why it would mean a lot to people, but personally for me there was too many things about it that kind of frustrated me and how I wish it had been done slightly differently, and I just felt quite frustrated the whole way through. While I'm filming this video, I haven't actually recorded my review of that yet, but I should have done it by the time you'll see it in this video, so I will link that down below so you can see more of my thoughts. Because I feel a bit bad that I didn't like it, because I've heard so many people say that they love it, so it was a very disappointing read for me this year, sadly. So I went back to Emma's channel, and the question that she asked was, did I like this setting? And for that I wrote kinda, because I kind of did like the setting, I just wish it was done differently. And that led me to the next prompt, which was a channel that I'd never heard before. Actually, I'd never heard of Tasmin or Meg's channels before this readathon, so I found those two guys. And then the last prompt was Fictional Fates, which is a channel run by Joel. And I'd never seen his channel before, so it was nice to kind of be introduced to new people through like different prompts and stuff. Anyway, his prompt was read a book with a weapon, or with weapons in some way. Of course, any excuse. I went back to The Mad Ship by Robin Hobb, and I'll confess, so The Midnight Library and The Mad Ship, Midnight Library I finished in December. Mad Ship I'm finishing in December, because it's December. Yeah. So I didn't actually complete the readathon in the month of November. I kind of like these readathons where you can just take your time with them and just kind of chill with it and just follow along the prompts without any real time constraints. Obviously that's the case for every readathon, because you don't have to read books within a certain time frame, but obviously that's the challenge. For some of them it feels more like the challenge than for other readathons. So I really like the ones that are very chill and not so strict on the rules, which I think was the aim of this readathon. So look, I'm nowhere near finished this one yet. As I'm filming this, today is Wednesday, and then this book needs to be finished by Sunday, so I can watch the live stream for the Elder Ling-along, which is the read-along of the Robin Hobb books, run by Becca in the Books. Yeah, so this book has just over 900 pages, and I'm only on page 146, so I've got a lot of reading to do in the next few days. But hopefully I would have finished this by then, and then I would have finished the 1,000 Doors Readathon, which is really exciting. Okay, so the final readathon I want to talk about is one that I took part in back in April, and that was the TBR Clear Out Readathon, which was run by Katie from Books and Things. And the idea of this readathon was just to kind of read books that had been on your TBR for the most time, for a really long time, just to kind of sift through some old stuff. So again, there was like no prompts, it was really chill readathon. I think at the time I structured what I chose based on prompts from The Last Ever Owls that was run by G from Book Roast. So yeah, I mainly picked these books based on those prompts, but I read them for the Clear Out readathon because they've been on my TBR for so long. I can't remember if I truly ended up finishing these in April, but I definitely read them for this readathon. But yeah, I read Aliens, and I ended up doing my own little video about Aliens, which I will link down below if you wanted to go and check it out, just talking about the book in much more detail. I also read The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton, and this book I kind of can't really remember anymore, but I did remember really liking it. So this is set in the 1600s in Amsterdam, and it's really kind of creepy. It's about someone who's moved from the country to the city, and about her new marriage, and about this creepy dollhouse and creepy little dolls that she receives go in the doll's house, and it's a bit of a mystery. And yeah, I did really enjoy it. I also read Einstein's Dreams by Alan Lightman. So this is like a little fictional book which imagines Einstein thinking about time and thinking about the reality of time and how time could move, and it's like very short snippets of like just exploring different scenarios and different ways that time could move and what that would mean for the world. I think I did really like it, but there were things that I thought there was more of. Like, I mean, it's not very long and it's just little snippets. And there's obviously like loads more to consider with the concept of time. It's just like there's infinite things you could probably come up with to talk about time. So, but it was interesting. I think because of the readathon I was doing at the time, I was only reading it at night, and I feel like that was a mistake. And maybe I didn't give it enough of a chance because I was tired every time I read it, and you can't really be tired when you're thinking about time in this kind of way. Yeah, but so I definitely want to reread this at some point. Then I read The Colour of Magic by Terry Pratchett. Really liked this. It was really good. It was really funny. This is the first of his Discworld series, and I want to read all of them. I've only read this one so far. I think The Light Fantastic is the second one, but yeah, it's just set on this Discworld, this flat world that's on the back of a tortoise, which is on the back of elephants or something. I can't remember completely. You're following a wizard who's been put in charge of this tourist that has come into a very dangerous part of the world, and he's just like frantically trying to keep him safe. And it's really funny. I'm really looking forward to the rest of the series. Then I also read Little Fires Everywhere. I think I've given it away now, so I don't have it here anymore. But Little Fires Everywhere is like a mystery. It's by Celeste. It's a mystery about two different families kind of coming together in this small town, and the clashes that they are and the way the two families interact with each other. And that, I did like it. I think I gave it 3 stars in the end. Yeah, it's kind of one of those series that's kind of dwindled from my mind a little bit, but I have been meaning to watch the series that Reese Witherspoon has done. I watched Little Fires Everywhere, that's what I'm talking about. I watched Big Little Lies, that Reese Witherspoon adapted, and I did really like that, although she made changes that I didn't like. But anyway, okay, so that's my 3 readathons that I took part in this year that I really enjoyed. I did take part in a few others. Not as much as I wanted to. I just want to give like a side mention to Believathon, because I didn't end up participating in Believathon, but it's this really great middle grade readathon run by Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin, and yeah, I just really love that readathon, but I didn't get to participate in this year. Hopefully next year I will participate in it. He puts so much effort into everything he does, and yeah, he got so many authors involved this year, and he did so many interviews with authors, and yeah, he just does so much work on his videos and everything that he does. So I really hope I can participate in that properly next year. Anyway, yeah, so that's the end of the video. I hope this was okay. It's a bit of a chaotic video to film, so hopefully it comes across all right. Did you guys have any readathons that you really liked? I'd love to hear about them, because I do love them, and especially love ones which have no pressure and you can read books basically whenever you want. Those are my favourite kind of readathons. Cool, so I'll see you tomorrow for day 4 of Bookmas. I hope everyone's doing well and enjoying their day after Boxing Day, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care guys, bye.